Hello, everybody. Drasco here from 10knorm.com, where my main focus is to help guide heart-centered entrepreneurs under 10K months to transcend all of the blind spots that are keeping them from thinking, feeling, acting, and authentically marketing so they can normalize their own versions of 10K months. And on today's episode, we have a Real Talk segment where I bring in a heart-centered entrepreneur on their way towards their own 10K norm. And we have some real talk about what's currently their biggest challenge towards their 10K norm. And in that, we explore who they are, why they do what they do, and then live on the call, I get to help them get out of their own way on a challenge that they're currently experiencing towards their 10K norm. And for today's guest, we have Tamara Jeffries, who is the owner of Grow and Thrive Wellness, which is who is a holistic trauma counselor. She's a transformational coach, an international yoga teacher. And if that wasn't enough, she's also an author who helps women heal trauma and transform their lives. She does this as both one-on-one work and in her group 12-month program. And she's also the author of the groundbreaking Empowered Women's Guide to Healing Trauma e-course. And for anybody interested, and I'm sure we'll get into this on the call, it's a comprehensive holistic approach and delivering a body-based mindfulness tools to heal the mind, body, and spirit. So Tamara, very excited to have you on the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to have you on here as well because, like as I always start these episodes, like I read these little blurbs that, give the context of who you are, but it's like, okay, like that's just me reading it. And you seem to have, like I said, it was like a laundry list of things that you're, good at and experience that. So I'd love to hear it from your words, what you do, who you do it for, and, ultimately how you got into it.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you for that intro. So, yeah, I am a holistic counselor and a transformational coach. And I started this work back in 2005, first as a volunteer at a rape crisis center. And from there, I just kind of grew in my skill set and my education. I knew that I wanted to work with trauma survivors. And as I progressed, I just realized I needed a fuller toolkit. So, and I also knew that I wanted to work holistically. So I just decided to get as many certifications in everything possible so that I could be this like one-stop shop. So I got certified as a body worker, as a yoga teacher. I got my master's in somatic psychology and all these certifications working with trauma, and then my life coach certification so that I could just sit down with any woman and say, okay, where are you today? We can find an entry point in like through one of these modalities. So I've been doing it, for all these years, and now recently moved everything onto, online. So now everything's virtual, which has been interesting. I thought that it would be like something would be lost in translation, but it really hasn't. I'm really like grateful for the technology because we can still see each other and still have that resonance and still do some powerful work. So that's what I'm doing now.
Love it. And I think there's so much there with regards to, like, I think the part that shines through for me is this big and deep love for, like, this is almost like your soul's calling work, right?
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
took all of these certifications and I got really good at understanding all of the aspects that I could
Mhm.
potentially, like, and I say attack simply to just kind of point that, like, I can
Oh yeah.
take it from
Yeah.
any sides, not as
Yeah.
like an attack.
Yeah.
And I think, both in my own experience with regards to the work that I've done, the trauma that I've dealt with, and
Mm.
just for context, so I owned a brick and mortar weight loss center for 10
Right.
years.
Right.
So the holistic approach and approaching not just, okay, like the mechanics of, what you're doing, but to approach it holistically in the sense that you
Mhm.
can attack it from many different angles, I think is such a key thing. So just kudos to you for that.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, you're very welcome. And what I'd love to know is how does that show up with regards to, the clients and the people that you work with?
So it attracts women who are identifying as trauma survivors, and that can be emotional, physical, or sexual trauma. Um, I've, put myself on all of the platforms, so I find that I'm getting some traction from women who are finding me on Facebook or finding me on Instagram, but however they find me, they're resonating to this message that I'm putting out there and are ready to do the work.
Love it. And one of the things you said with regards to like, okay, like they're ready to do the work. So from my understanding and like the work that I've done personally with regards to trauma, the way that I've always understood it as like a definition is like anything that happens that I couldn't handle in the moment. Right. So I would actually, just before I continue, like I'd love to know, as somebody who's an expert in it, how do you like take that in? Is there anything to add to that? Like I'd love to know more about that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the textbook definition of trauma is a stress that is beyond our everyday reality. We all have coping skills as we deal with stress on a daily basis, but a trauma is a stress that is so large and so overwhelming to our nervous system that we aren't able to access our normal coping skills. And that's why it becomes a trauma. But I think now that for a long time, I was a real like staunch purist on that, because you get people saying like traffic today was such a trauma. And it's like traffic is bad, but it's never like a trauma. But now that we've been through this pandemic, like an entire year of being in a pandemic, I feel like everyone who's been through this has now experienced what it is to live in a stressful situation that is beyond your normal coping skills. So I think at this point, everybody is exhibiting some trauma signs.
Got it. And what about in instances where, and again, I'm just kind of, in many ways, kind of selfishly picking at your brain here.
Sure.
In instances where like, you have kind of I don't want to say if it's the typical model or like the typical narrative of, something happens in childhood that, like you said, you don't have the capacity to interpret as you would as an adult.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times this has been true for me and even some of the clients that I work with that help, move them through certain aspects of like, okay, like that thing happened, just because it's not considered, people would say like big T trauma, it was still something that was internalized in a way that's not providing you the results that you want. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious, in your definition and your understanding, would that be a good way to look at it?
Yeah, I think that again, yeah, that big T definition of trauma, it's like as children, we don't have any resources really other than our caregivers. And if our caregivers aren't there to tend to us in a way that is loving, nurturing, affirming, and soothing when something bad happens to us, then we don't know how to metabolize it. We don't know how to integrate it. We don't know what it is. And so it just kind of lives in this as this foreign thing in us. And it becomes the foundation of belief systems. And if it happened at a young enough age, it falls into the unconscious. So we don't even know that we're dealing with these things anymore, And so it could be, it's really interesting because we're all different and we all have different range of resilience, right? So one child who gets sternly yelled at by a teacher, like that could scar that child until adulthood. Like they will forever have this, maybe the teacher called them stupid because they didn't do something right on a test or whatever, but they'll have that seed of doubt in themselves forever. And it can be just as damaging to their psyche as someone who was beaten, because we're different in our levels of resilience. So, I try to encourage people when they say things like, they try to compare and they're like, I never went through anything like major. And I'm like, you don't have to go through something major. You have to go through something that was major for you. If it was major for you, that's all that matters, So does that answer your question?
100%. I mean, it was,
Okay.
I guess, like I had an understanding of it. Like I said, I've worked through it. I wouldn't consider myself by any stretch of imagination a trauma specialist, but in terms of working through certain things that come up that were like ripple effects of, big T, little T trauma, like that does come up in the work that I do with clients as well. And I was just kind of, it was more of a reaffirming question for me. So the way that you put it together, I think is I mean, it's great because that's exactly how, I've seen it, and to have your reflection of it
Mhm.
is awesome.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm curious about,
Mhm.
to kind of springboard off of that, is
Mhm.
when it comes to working with individuals that would identify as, okay, like I've gone through this big T trauma, this major trauma.
Mhm.
um, I think what I could see, and you can let me know if I'm wrong here, is like
Mhm.
oftentimes there's either, they might not want to go there, so there's just like hesitancy to then like work with you, because it's like,
Mhm.
if I
Mhm.
commit to this, then I really got to go into that place that I don't want to go.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, or there's that sentiment of, like you mentioned, oh, like I didn't go through anything like major, therefore this is not what I need, and then we keep
Mhm.
perpetuating these patterns of surface level solutions. So I'm just
Mhm.
curious, is that something that you've seen in your work, and if so, how do you like work around it?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've probably seen like the gamut of that. And what I like to do initially with a new client is just prepare them for the resistances and blocks they're going to come up against. Because even if they start with me and they're all gung ho, like I'm ready to do this, several weeks in, resistance is going to come up. And I want them to be prepared for that. I'm like, there are going to be days where you don't want to show up for session. There are going to be days when you don't want to do the homework. There are going to be days when you don't want to talk to me. There's going to be all these things are going to come up for you. That's normal, because healing takes a process of building safety, you know, and until we build that safety, our psyche is going to keep putting up resistance. And so, even though consciously we're like totally ready, on that deeper level, we're totally scared. And at some point, that's going to, come up into the fore. And that's going to be the resistance we have to deal with. And it's like, okay, so we know that this is going to happen. And we know that underneath it all, there's some part of you that's really scared. So let's just back it off, back off for a bit and just like create more safety so that that part can come down. And
Got
that's
it.
generally how I work with it.
Yeah, love it. I mean, it's amazing to me, and thank you for sharing that, how like even in, the some of the things that have happened like on the podcast with regards to things that come up and how we deal with it, and certainly in like my coaching and working with clients,
Mm-hmm.
like I will have different words to describe what you just shared, but it's like that is the shared experience, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's one thing that I really want to drive home for everybody listening, that, we started this with, is like, yeah, it doesn't matter if it was, like you said, that the teacher telling you you're stupid, and now the ripple effect of that is like, I, do not go forward in the business that I want or make that business, or if it was
Right.
something, quote unquote, like big T trauma, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I love the fact that the process for both, right? It's like the intensity might have been different in the moment or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's happening right now, it's like I don't feel safe. So
Right.
then the emotions and the subsequent ripple thoughts attached to it are going to put in all of these aspects that are going to hold me back, right? Like we give
Right.
that name of self-sabotage, but really it's a
Mm-hmm.
coping mechanism that's gone awry. So
Exactly.
awesome.
Exactly.
And is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No, but I think that that's a good point that you bring up, that that's what we call self sabotage. But I think the truer essence of self sabotage is that there are parts of us that are just too afraid, and we need to create safety for that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we say, like, self-sabotage is real, but it doesn't actually exist, right? Like the consequences of it are real, the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors associated with it are real, but it doesn't actually exist because it's a need fulfilling behavior. So yeah,
Yes, exactly.
love
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that case, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to then explore, you clearly have this big passion to do this. You clearly have like this vast amount of like wisdom and knowledge with regards to helping people transcend these aspects that are holding them back. So I'm curious to know then, as far as your 10K norm, what do you feel like is standing in your way of making that a reality?
Mm. Well, my business has had like many iterations over the years. And so I've recently relocated once again, and it just feels like I'm starting over again. You know, I had a brick and mortar business years ago as well, and I really felt like that was my dream, and I was so excited to have it. Um, in retrospect, though, I realized that had COVID hit and I still had that brick and mortar, it would have gone out of business. So it's like, you know, the universe works in wonderful ways. So now it's just, you know, starting over, and you know, there's just so much information out there about how to market your business, and I'm taking it all in, and at some point I feel like I have to figure out for myself what works for me, you know, because if like you go into these networking groups and everyone's like just checking off all these boxes of all these things that are the hot thing that you should be doing, you know. um, and for a long time I thought like social media was the thing, and like keeping up with these algorithms and always posting and all this stuff. And um and I'm realizing it's not for me. I don't resonate with it. So it's like, what, yeah, what is it in my marketing that I can resonate with, that will bring the leads, that will create that 10K month?
So when you, and I'm assuming you've done certain marketing things
Mhm,
already, like you've tried certain things. Okay.
mhm.
Out of all of the ones that you've tried, which ones felt the least like work?
I think what's resonating with me right now is building my publicity, reaching out to different media outlets, to newspapers, and getting my name out that way. Because that feels like people are coming to me organically rather than me having to do all these like direct messaging and all these posts on Instagram and all that stuff.
Got it. So more like if I get myself out there and I speak and people hear me speak, then that will kind of
Mhm.
bring people to me.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Mhm.
And has that been working to move you closer to what it is that you want?
Well, it's all just started, so I feel it moving incrementally, but I can't say 100% yes because it's just in its beginning.
Got it. Okay. And when you look at the other things that you have tried, so you
Mhm.
mentioned like reach outs and like posting and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Um, has that yielded any results, or it's still too early to tell?
No, I feel like that has not yielded results. Like I know I've invested time and money in it, and it's like not done anything that I feel like really supports my business.
Got it. So then in terms
Mhm.
of the clients that you are working with online, how did you end up getting those?
Um, through networking, like I belong to a lot of groups in Facebook, so women found me there, and I mean I have a presence on Instagram, and so some women have found me there, but that doesn't feel as magnetizing as these other things do.
So when you are in these groups that you are part of,
Mhm.
what is usually your role in them that actually yielded clients?
Just making posts, like, you know, doing that. Hi, you know, I'm Tamara. This is what I do. I'm accepting new clients. I love to talk to you. Like just those kinds of like intro kind of posts that seem to get women talking to me.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
part of a group. I say, this is who I am. This is what I do. And then
Mhm.
that ends up starting certain conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's been working,
Mhm.
why switch to something that seems to not be liked or isn't really working?
Um, well, what do you mean? I'm switching to like Instagram or switching to the
Right, because you
publicity?
mentioned like, okay, like publicity,
Mhm.
Instagram and posting,
Mhm.
getting myself out there in other
Mhm.
media,
Mhm.
right? It's like, okay, I've tried all these things, it's kind of new, it's not really
Mhm.
yielding the results, but then there is this other stuff that I've done and it's actually gotten me clients, but I kind of stopped doing those things. So why
Well,
transition?
yeah. Well, I feel like when I was posting in the women's groups, and it's not something I kept up. I was doing that and offering an intro rate that's much lower than what my actual monthly rate or package rate is. And I think that was attractive to women, but I don't want to keep posting, you know, these discounted rates. Like that's not my goal. So, but I do, I kind of, I want to use everything that's working, right? So posting in the groups works some, but it's not like consistent. I've just started with the publicity, and that's, I feel like it's building something. So, you know, we'll see. The only thing that I feel like is just not panning out are like the everyday posts on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Like that just seems like it's not doing anything or much of anything.
Right, that's kind of the drag and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So the sentiment of like I was posting, but then basically what I was posting is like a highly discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that did actually get you certain clients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
why post with the discounted rate?
Because I was just starting, and I just wanted to, you know, get some contact and start some conversations. So that's why.
So you were just starting online, but I mean, you've
Mm-hmm.
been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Okay,
Right. Mm-hmm.
so there seems to be a bit of a like a negative cognition or some aspect there that like, oh, just because I'm starting online,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm going to discount the wealth of experience I have.
Mm,
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Does that resonate in any way?
Mm, I get what you're saying, and I guess in that decision to post a special, it's kind of just like old thinking of like, this is how you drum up business. You know, you like put these blasts out and you post specials, and that's what you do. So, but I can see the disconnect that you're talking about.
Okay, and then what comes up for you like when that like I can see that disconnect, like what
Mm-hmm.
comes up for you internally with regards to that?
Mm. Well, I think because that wasn't how I began. I think I just started with, you know, probably, well, now I have to go back in my memory and think about what I did. Because honestly, you know, I put my website together, and my fees were posted there. And then when I started publicizing on social media, I don't think I ever put my full fee out there. I don't think I ever did that. So that was kind of like a skipped step. So it just went into, you know, an introductory um, discounted rate.
Okay, and does it feel more comfortable to lead with the discounted rate versus it feels more uncomfortable to lead with the full rate, or there's not really a lot of difference?
Hmm. I would say it feels more comfortable now because I had a very clear reason, like why I left that, why I put that discounted rate out there. That this was like months ago. Um, that felt more comfortable then, but now it feels more comfortable to have my full rate.
Awesome. Yeah, good. So I just want to make sure that wasn't still a thing because that does come up all the time with the hearts and entrepreneurs that I work with, where it's, you know, we will discount the value that we hold because of these narratives of it should be this way, it should be that way. I mean, even how exactly like you said it, right? Like this is how business should be done. Well, like, is that really true? Right?
Right.
Because it's like
Right.
you're not, you know, I don't know, like you were an office worker before, and then you've spent a year getting a life coach certification, and now this is like your first foray into doing it. Like
Mm.
you've had this like well of experience from which
Mm.
to draw from. Like whether we're in person or we're online, like your
Mm.
skill set is your skill set, right? So I think
Right.
the first thing is just watching those narratives of the shoulds, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
should
Right.
be done this particular way. So I would
Right.
into okay, are there any other shoulds that are operating right now, right? Like I should post this way on social media. I should
Mm-hmm.
have my prices on my website. I should have a process of selling, you know, this way or that way. So do
Mm-hmm.
any shoulds come up when I reflect that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the latest shoulds are about like the funnels. Like everybody's got to have all these funnels going, and that's been a learning curve for me also. So I did one of these funnels, and I took the time to create a series of videos that was a free offer that was supposed to funnel people into my, or women into my support group. And the free offer was picked up, like people were going for it, but it didn't lead where it was supposed to go. It was just like, and I don't even, and looking back at the stats, like not everyone, of course, not everyone finished the video series and whatnot. So this whole thing about funnels is it should. But still the whole thing about, keeping up with that algorithm is a should. It's like, you got to be posting XYZ, amount per week, or you just drop into oblivion and people don't see you anymore. So that's another one.
Okay, so the should's about the tools that I need to use in order
Mhm.
to succeed. Those are coming up. Anything else?
Mhm. I think that's it right now.
Got it.
Mhm.
And in addition to like the tools and stuff that we have all of these narratives around,
Mhm.
um, are there any narratives that come up with regards to, okay, I need to sell people a particular way? Like, is there anything about that that pops up?
Sell people a particular way. No, I don't think anything comes up around that.
Okay, got it. So just to give you context in case that it
Mm.
didn't make as much sense as I was hoping for.
Mm.
Um, Oftentimes when it comes to selling,
Mm.
especially individuals that come from like quote unquote more traditional healing modalities, so
Mm.
therapists, etc., where
Mm.
there's this norm of, okay, I should sell X amount of sessions at a particular rate,
Mhm.
get people in the door, versus, okay, I should sell a result for a particular
Mhm.
amount of time for a particular rate. Is there any distinctions between those two?
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I feel like that's been part of my training in all this, is that we as um, holistic providers, as coaches, we're selling an experience, right? And for me, the experience is transformation. So that's has to be in my wording, that that is the value that I'm giving, is transformation.
Okay. And then do your offers and how you approach them reflect that?
I believe so, but I think I indirectly. I think, because part of what I do is tell a story, either, giving some of my story or giving some of my client's story, giving the process and the outcome. And I guess by doing all that, you get the story of transformation. So I don't really use that word transformation per se.
Okay. So I think that is a very important distinction and a very important narrative, and one that does come up often, like I said, when people make that transition,
Mm-hmm.
because the realization here is when we are experts at something,
Mm-hmm.
our brain defaults to speaking in expert terms. So we
Mm-hmm.
speak to be technically correct, we speak to the solution that we offer, we speak to the modality because we are rooted in, I can solve your problem and these are my tools. So we are
Mm-hmm.
very comfortable in that technical space.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that oftentimes comes up with that is it's very much disconnected from where the person that we can help is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So,
Right.
and I'll bring it back to you, but just as like a general example,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm talking, so bringing it back to fitness, because it's something that, everybody can kind of relate to. If I'm talking to an individual and I'm giving them the kind of modality that I will use to improve the biomechanics of their squats,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna be like, listen, I just want to like go down the stairs without knee pain. Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
if you have to call a plumber and the plumber's like, well, I'm going to use like this flange and this hinge and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
like, I just need hot water, like, take
Right.
a shower. Like, can you
Right.
do that for me?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
now bringing it back to, healing modalities,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes what happens is there is this disconnect between
Mm-hmm.
where people are. So you said, okay, what I'm selling them is an experience, which
Mm-hmm.
indirectly I know is a transformation. That
Mm-hmm.
indirectly is like a small word with a very big impact.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that has had the realization that, that trauma thing that happened 20, 30, whatever, 40 years ago has impact in my life right now. It's almost like like that meme where the brain blows up. It's like, oh my God, like that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But now if we're talking to them about like modalities and experiences, it's a little bit of a disconnect. So it's like I first
Mm-hmm.
feel seen and heard and
Mm-hmm.
understood maybe marketing. I
Mm-hmm.
need to better understand my pain and then
Right.
move somebody towards the realization that there's a gap between where they are and the vision that they might not even have clarity on, like what can life look
Mm-hmm.
like beyond,
Mm-hmm.
the identity I have with being a trauma survivor.
Right.
Now, before I continue, does that resonate and or make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, and I missed that language when I was explaining myself to you. But yeah, what I'm doing in my post is speaking to the pain point and calling that out and offering these solutions. So yeah.
Perfect. So then
Mhm.
when you're actually going forward and selling, are
Mhm.
you selling the end result of that?
Uh, I believe I am. I mean,
Okay,
I have to have someone else to look at my post, but I believe I am.
perfect. So, I mean, just walk me through it. Then let's just say I have the trauma that I was like bullied quite a lot as a kid. And either through your posts or in some way, I was like, okay, I've identified that, what that could be
Mhm.
manifesting as a lack of confidence at work.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just, I mean, obviously we don't have to like role play the whole sale, but like, what is it that you are selling to me?
With that scenario, I feel like it would be a question of someone who is suffering because they want to move ahead and they can't somehow. Like they're seeing all these people get promoted around them and they don't know why. They're feeling like they're falling behind. And there's something in them that's a seed belief and a wound to their self esteem that's steeped in this bullying. And so the the thing that I would probably say to reach out to them is that, are you feeling frustrated because you're not where you know you want to be? Are you feeling, what's the word I want? Downhearted because you're seeing all these people move ahead and you're not, and you can't figure out why. This process that I will take you through will help you get to the why and help you transform that into the steps that can take you forward.
Perfect. And does that illuminate my situation further or sells me the result of that illumination?
Hmm. I suppose it illuminates because I didn't articulate the outcome in what I just said.
Correct.
Mhm.
So people will be drawn to you
Mhm.
and your ability to illuminate and make them feel seen and heard.
Mhm.
What they're going to pay for is the result of the other side of that,
Mhm. Right.
right? And then the prompt, and again, this happens all the time, was
Mhm.
like, okay, if this is who I am approaching you,
Mhm.
what result are you selling me? Your
Mhm.
brain right away goes back to my expertise, how I see you, what I know you need to work on.
Mhm.
The problem is I don't get up in the morning thinking, oh man, like what I really need is like more illumination.
Mhm.
Like I get up, I'm so like I don't want to go to work because all I see is failure.
Yeah.
Who I am because I'm not getting the promotion that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I would be qualified for.
Right.
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 The result that I want
Mm-hmm.
is I want the freedom to execute on the work that I know I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I will pay for. The
Right.
gap will be filled with the modalities you described.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, like, how does that land for you when
No,
reflecting?
I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So do you see any of those patterns when you do go forward and like do any either the marketing or the selling or the conversations?
I'm sorry, do I see patterns where?
So like what I just like reflected back,
Mm-hmm.
like does that, like when you look back through either your posts or your reach
Mm-hmm.
outs or conversations that you've had that didn't lead to sales,
Mm-hmm.
does anything like that come up where
Oh, okay.
instead of being rooted in the other person's, and you might not even be doing the work to explore the result that they
Mm-hmm.
want, but actually rooted in the modality, like does that resonate as far as what might be happening on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm. And I'm going back in my mind to these various posts, and I think that I do hit that, but in all honesty, it just might not be as effective as it could be. Like, I'm understanding that there's, power in wording, and even if it was just the changing of one word, that might do the difference or make the difference.
I would 100% agree with you. And I would also say that the messaging differs. So like if it's a post, usually like it's extremely hard, especially with no audience, to be like, okay, I'm gonna make one post, I'm gonna make like 10 sales.
Mm.
Extremely unlikely, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the posts are going to be more reflective of, I see you, I hear you, I understand you,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I can help you, right? They're going to have, as a general thing, it's not always true, but they're going to have
Yeah,
a general sentiment of that.
yeah.
When somebody takes the next step so that their mindset is a bit different to actually speak with you,
Mm-hmm.
I think in your instance, that's when it really counts because you're not working with a big audience. The
Mm-hmm.
impact of the posts is minimal, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whether I
Mm-hmm.
shift that to my minimal audience, like isn't as big of a like ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
But when I am speaking to individuals,
Mm-hmm.
refining how I speak and do that sales process, I think is going to go a long ways. In fact, I think it's going to be a bigger um, multiplicative effect for you
Mm-hmm.
than improving any of the funnels, any of the content, any of like those pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that piece land for you?
No, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know we kind of touched on a bunch of different
Mm-hmm.
aspects of this.
Yeah.
Does this kind of feel complete in the sense that I have some like additional clarity? I don't really have any clarity. Does it feel complete? Like what's kind of your internal state right now?
Uh, it feels like this has been a validation of things that I knew. Just mm, getting more laser focused on it.
Yeah, and I agree, right? Because I think you know your stuff from the inside out, and it's just a matter of like fine tuning it so that I can
Mm-hmm.
communicate better to serve people where they're at. Like I got to matter
Right.
to them with regards to where they're at. I got to get better at speaking their language. I can get better at communicating that piece
Mm-hmm.
so that they can decide to make that commitment to close that gap. So yeah,
Right.
that is a huge one that comes up quite a bit often.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, like, does that feel complete for you, or is there
Oh
anything
yeah.
coming up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, in that case, if it feels complete, I'm gonna shift the floor back over to you so that you can, let all the good people know with regards to, who is it that you work for, what's the best way for them to contact you, where is the best place for them to reach you. Floor is yours to.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So Again, I am Tamara Jeffries of Grow and Thrive Wellness, and you can find me at growandthrivewellness.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Grow and Thrive Wellness. And if you want to email me, you can email me at tamara@tamarajeffries.com.
Awesome. And who would be the best person to reach out to?
I work exclusively with women, and I work with women who identify as trauma survivors. And again, we don't have to go into like that big letter T, but if there's just been something in your life that you feel has overwhelmed you, has left you feeling stuck in these patterns that aren't shifting, you know, that's the woman who usually comes my way, who resonates with the work. But I'll also add women who are interested in a truly holistic approach that looks at the deep psyche, looks at dreams, looks at working with the body and working with the body through somatic exercises, which are, it's looking at the mind-body connection. So someone who's resonant with that kind of work also does well in my programs.
Awesome. Love it. We're going to include all those links and everything in the show notes. So yeah, definitely, if even for a little bit that resonates with you, you have the opportunity here to really get the help that you need. So highly encourage you to check out all of the links. So Tamara, thank you very much for coming on today, and we'll see everybody on the next one.